Hi, it's Miss Trisha. She wants to talk about a poem with you. As you can see, I go everywhere with a book, so I love poetry too. I'd like to talk to you especially about a poem that was written in the 80s. I was born in the 80s. That's me as a baby. So adorable. Here's me again, still in the 80s, feeding my little brother Greg. But the 80s weren't as cute and adorable as you might think. And as a matter of fact, Michael Jackson thought they were kind of bad. You know what? Carol Ann Duffy also thought that the 80s were bad. That's because she was under the regime of Margaret Thatcher, who was really all about cutting education. Well, maybe I'm not being fair. I mean, Margaret Thatcher was about other things too, but during that time period there was a lot of conflict, and, well, education had to be cut. So, Duffy decided to pen the poem Education for Leisure. This was after she visited a school in the East End of London where many underprivileged students were attending. Here's my initial reading of Education for Leisure. Of course, I'm going to highlight the title. The title of any poem is going to be important, and in this case, perhaps it's a little ironic now that you know the context. Then I'm going to highlight kill, that's a very harsh word, and today, the immediacy of that right at the beginning. And then I'm also going to highlight anything. One-word sentence, that's kind of bizarre. Then I'm highlighting all of the I's. I started off this video by just talking about myself unnecessarily. When someone just blabbers on about me, what does that allow you to do? How do you feel about that person? Then I'm highlighting Shakespeare because we've got this interesting juxtaposition of the very creative and the world of boredom. So that's going to be important, I think. Then I'm moving on and I'm highlighting this idea of signing on. Now, there's some cultural context there. If the speaker is signing on in the 1980s in the UK, that means they're getting unemployment money. Why is that relevant for us to know? I'm then highlighting he cuts me off. How does the speaker feel they're being treated? And then I'm moving into suddenly and your arm. Bringing up the you is going to be important for our reading. Just like the speaker in Duffy's poem, I'm going to go back and talk about me again. Did you notice in that original picture I'm reading a book by Margaret Atwood? That's because Atwood is a genius, and this is another quote from her. The answers you get from literature depend on the questions you pose. Let's talk about questions. So these are a few questions that I think are relevant to developing a great commentary for this particular poem by Duffy. I'm going to look at that issue of today as well as anything right there in line 1. What does that do for you, the reader? I think it's also really important to unpack what sort of persona or speaker does Duffy construct in this poem. What do you think Duffy intended for us to be thinking about that persona? And how does she really methodically construct that speaker who seems so real, who we can really characterize? Which lines allow us to do that? Asking great questions is really what's going to allow you to develop a great commentary, so here's some more. In line 17, when Duffy uses signing off, I already mentioned the cultural context. So again, that issue of the persona needing that unemployment money, how does that image juxtapose with the line, they don't appreciate my autograph? Is she being ironic? Is she being funny? What do you think? The author repetitively uses I in the poem. I mentioned that. Why does Duffy do that? And where do we see a shift occurring in the poem? In that final line where we get the speaker going from I, all the way through the poem, and then into the end with your. Again, kind of acknowledging you, the reader. What effect does that have? What's going on with the title? Always come back to the title of a poem. So this is just something to help you while you're working on your commentary. Again, reading is about rereading. It's about going back, looking for those keyholes that allow you to really get into that text and provide analysis for the examiner. Keep calm, read on.